Hello and welcome to the Central Television. I am Lekon Onobanjo, the top stories at this hour. Nigeria says more troops will be deployed to uproot new terror sect Lakurawa in affected states. EFCC places former Edo State Governor on watch list over contracts probe. Armed masked men disrupt anti-government protest in Malawi. Details to come your way shortly. Let's begin by telling you that the federal government of Nigeria has announced plans to deploy additional military personnel and formations to states affected by the activities of the Lakurawa Sect as part of intensified efforts to combat the terrorist group. This was disclosed by Colonel Ahmed Usman, retired Special Advisor on Security Matters to Sokoto State Governor Ahmad Aliyu. Usman revealed that the government's decision followed the November 8th attack on Mera village in Kebbi State, where 17 residents were killed. The sect, known for its operations in Sokoto and Kebbi States in the northwest, is reported to have expanded its activities into Niger and Kaduna States in north-central Nigeria. The Sokoto State Government reiterated its commitment to protecting lives and property, emphasizing that security remains a top priority on its 9-point agenda. In the meantime, Arbia State Governor Alex Oti says the security architecture of the state will be overhauled to tackle the present security challenges bedeviling the state, rising from a State Security Council meeting at his country home in Mvosi, Isialangwa, South Local Government Area of Arbia State at the weekend. Governor Oti also assured that peace will be restored in the state. The Central's Chimuogili reports.
Arbia State has had some level of calm for months, with only pockets of crime intermittently. But the events of the past 2 weeks across the state are such that paint the state in bad light and only signify security threats to lives and property. Governor Alex Oti has disclosed the heads of security agencies in the state have resolved to go after all those who contributed to the killing of the security men recently.
We have resolved to rejig the security architecture and ensure that things like this will be a thing of the past. We have also agreed to redouble all our efforts in the different areas where there are possibilities of attacks, particularly now that the military is here.
The special advisor to Governor Alex Oti on security matters, MacDonald Oba, also in an interview earlier, says arrests are being made in connection with the killings.
Investigations are ongoing, arrests are being made, and we will surely get everybody to account for the actions they've taken in this regard.
Some residents of the state are worried that the situation seems worsening by the day, especially as the Yuletide approaches.
Normally, it do happen every festive period. A lot of obstacles and a lot of crimes do happen based on the rate of crimes in the country. So people try to do some crazy things to survive, you know?
We down here in Arbia, we used to have relative peace. So it's only worrisome that what we used to hear that happened in neighboring states have started to happen in our state.
They are, however, hopeful that the ugly trend will be surmounted soon.
And I believe that very soon we will begin to see the outcome of that meeting.
The governor also warns all those fomenting trouble under any guise to expect a tough chase and fight from the government.
If you are a criminal in Arbia State, whether you call yourself IPOB or ESN or bandits or kidnappers, whatever you call yourself, this place will not be safe for you.
As the last month of the year approaches, residents would want a violent-free and crime-free celebrations across the state. In Omaha for News Central, I am Chinwe Ugele.
And away from that, we tell you that the Edo State Governor, Monday Okpewolo, has ordered the immediate dissolution of the Local Government Service Commission. The announcement was made on Monday in a statement by the governor's chief press secretary, Fred Itwa, who explained that the move aligns with the government's broader efforts to streamline operations and enhance the performance of public sector institutions. Governor Okpewolo reassured the public that the dissolution would not disrupt any ongoing official activity and pledged to work closely with stakeholders to restructure the commission for improved effectiveness. He reiterated his administration's commitment to transparent governance, emphasizing that these reforms aim to deliver better services and dividends of democracy to the people of Edo State. In the meantime, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has placed former Edo State Governor Kaduna Baseki on its watch list as it investigates transactions, including contracts awarded during his 8-year tenure. Obaseki, who left office on November 12, had previously claimed that the EFCC intended to arrest him after his tenure. This development follows the establishment of a 14-member State Assets Verification Committee by his successor, Governor Monday Okpewolo, to scrutinize his administration. Earlier on November 2, the EFCC arrested 5 officials from Obaseki's administration, including the Accountant General Julius Anelu, over alleged massive withdrawals from the state treasury within a short time frame. Despite these developments, Obaseki has maintained his willingness to cooperate with the EFCC, saying he's not afraid of a probe and was ready to account for his stewardship. Away from that, Governor Caleb Mutfwang has presented the Plateau State Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy paper for 2025 to 2027, along with the 2025 Appropriation Bill to the State House of Assembly. Approximately 471.1 billion naira is the total size of the budget for the state, which the governor said will give priority to security, agriculture, education, health, and other sectors that will further improve livelihood in the state. Correspondent Chizo Banyowe tells us more.
Caleb Mutfwang is among the first 10 governors in Nigeria to present their 2025 appropriation bill. The recurrent expenditure for the fiscal year is 201.5 billion naira, representing 45.46% of the total budget, while the capital expenditure stands at 258.8 billion naira, representing 56.54% of the budget size. With 156.2 billion naira higher than the 2024 budget, the governor said the bill, titled Budget of Consolidation and Sustainability, is a show of his commitment for further development in the state.
I assure you that we remain committed to serving you faithfully. I will not be distracted by any threats to our democratic ideals. I wish to inform this honorable House that the implementation of the budget will still be anchored on the present Plateau State Strategic Development Framework of 2023 to 2027, which is encapsulated in 3 pillar policies. 1, peace, security, and good governance. 2, sustainable economic revival. And 3, physical infrastructure development.
He is hopeful the Assembly members will ensure the budget receives swift attention, scrutiny, and speedy passage.
I sincerely trust that this budget will receive the attention and scrutiny it rightly deserves. As you carefully examine the budget, Mr. Speaker, I humbly request your cooperation and understanding in ensuring its prompt passage. A swift approval will enable us to initiate the implementation of these vital projects without delay.
Speaker of the Assembly assured the commitment of the legislators in contributing to the growth of Plateau State.
Today, we want to assure His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Plateau State, that this honorable House will look at the budget and do the necessary scrutiny as usual. But it should be noted that this institution remains resolute. We will never be disgraced, abused, or ridiculed in the name of creating seamless working relationship.
The people of Plateau State, as well as the governor, are now waiting on these legislators' swift approval and passage of the 2025 budget. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyuri.
Away from North Central, we shift to Core North, where Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State has commenced the distribution of federal government palliatives to residents impacted by recent flooding in parts of the state. During his visits on Sunday and Monday, Governor Zulum assessed the widespread damage in Gambon, Gala and surrounding areas, where devastating floods isolated communities for 4 months and caused extensive destruction to homes, infrastructure and farmland. In a statement issued by Borno Community Watch, the governor emphasized his commitment to delivering critical relief materials to those in need and expressed heartfelt sympathy for the challenges faced by affected residents. Governor Zulum also acknowledged the support of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the National Emergency Management Agency, thanking them for their timely assistance. He assured the people of Gambon, Gala that his administration is dedicated to supporting their recovery and improving their well-being. Some energy experts in Nigeria have called on the public to disregard rumors describing the use of compressed natural gas as unsafe and unfit for use in the transportation sector. Some of them spoke to newsmen in Abuja, the nation's capital, ahead of the upcoming conference on CNG, saying a focused transition to CNG will help grow the nation's economy, provide a cleaner and more sustainable energy solution for the public.
The CNG revolution in Nigeria, I think, is a huge tidal wave that I think everybody should key into to not only grow the economy of the country, to ensure that we have a cleaner and a more sustainable energy solution to drive our businesses and our economies. The gains are numerous. Using gas as a source, as a fuel of national designation, does not expose us to unnecessary risk in terms of the volatility of prices, of fluctuations of the product in the market due to foreign exchange and so on and so forth.
CNG has been adjudged to be one of the safest for automobile use. We have millions and millions of vehicles being powered by this gas all around the world, and the lowest incidence of use is from CNG-enabled vehicles. So it is not a Nigeria concept. It is a globally, fact, a globally acceptable fact that the gas is safe.
We'll now go on a break on the news. When we return, we'll tell you about the Education Ministry that has issued strict warning against bullying in schools. We'll be back in a bit. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Let's now tell you that Nigeria's economy experienced a notable 3.46% year-on-year increase in gross domestic product for the third quarter of 2024, as reported by the National Bureau of Statistics. This growth rate marks an improvement over both the 2.54% recorded in quarter 3, 2023, and the 3.19% growth seen in quarter 2, 2024. The oil sector, along with expansion in non-oil activities, especially in services and agriculture, contributed significantly to this performance. The services sector was a standout, showing a robust 5.19% growth and accounting for 53.58% of the total GDP. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has assured Nigerians of better economic output as the economy continues to expand following the newly released third quarter gross domestic product report by the National Bureau of Statistics. He assured that once the economy is rebased by early 2025 to capture its dynamism and record significant changes that have occurred in different sectors, the country will be on its way to shared prosperity. So this And now to this story, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, has submitted a petition to the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, over recurring cases of gender-based violence in the country. This was as the Speaker led lawmakers on a solidarity walk with women and several groups in the country as part of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
A call for accountability and decisive actions to safeguard vulnerable groups. It's a 1,000-man march led by members of the Nigeria's House of Representatives as part of solidarity with women in the country and support for the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The theme of this year's event is "There is no excuse for violence against women and girls." The demonstrators walked through major streets within the three-armed zone and arrived at their destination, the Nigeria Police Force headquarters, where they submitted their petition to the Inspector General of Police.
Sometimes when the arrests are made, you know, the evidence is spoiled, the evidence is damaged, the evidence is missing. Sometimes when they get to court, nothing to show for it. So this is where we have come to appeal to the Inspector General of Police that he should help us pass it down to the grassroots of the police force, that henceforth any gender-based violence that gets to any police station across the country must be taken seriously. There are laws, and perpetrators that violate such laws must be brought to book.
This petition is a call to action, urging the Nigerian police force to take concrete steps to address this critical issue. We request that the police should increase the number of gender desks in police stations across the country to provide a safe and supportive environment for survivors of gender-based violence.
We are saying no to sexual harassment. We are saying no to gender-based violence. The rape, we are saying no.
The Parliament for the first time is going to be actively involved in the 16 days of activism. After today, tomorrow, there's going to be a sash demonstration in the chamber where members are going to wear an orange sash in solidarity with the women that have been abused all over Nigeria and all over the world at large.
The IGP accepted the petition with a pledge to act on the issues raised by the lawmakers.
The Nigerian police force has developed what we call gender-based gender policy, which integrates global framework into our policing practices. And we have remained committed to that policy till today. I want to assure you that we'll look at your petition and we will treat every point in the petition as expected.
The message has been delivered and all eyes are now on the Nigerian police as Nigerians look forward to a huge improvement in the fight against gender-based violence in Nigeria. In Abuja, for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Still on the 16 days of activism event, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has expressed worry over the increasing rate of violence against women and girls, with over 1 million recorded cases between 2022 and 2023. The UNODC country representative for Nigeria says that 1 in 12 women experience femicide annually, with the actual figures likely being much higher. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai reports.
The Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Citizens and Leadership, in collaboration with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, launching the commencement of the 16 Days of Activism campaign in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The event brought together members from the diplomatic corps, government officials and gender rights advocates under one roof. In his address, the UNODC representative in Nigeria expressed the need for African countries to enhance data collection on gender-based violence against women.
89,000 women, girls intentionally killed in 2022, the highest in 2 decades. Over 1 million crimes related to violence against women and girls were recorded in 2022-2023, accounting to 20% of all police recorded crime. At least 1 in 12 women become victims each year. Unfortunately, most African countries lack data on femicide.
The senior special assistant to the president also called for increased participation from both the government and citizens in the fight against gender-based violence.
Some of the ways in which citizens can join the fight against gender-based violence include enlightening and educating others, supporting survivors, seeking policies which better address the scourge of gender-based violence, and taking action to seek the intervention of law enforcement in such cases when witnessed. I would thus like to urge other leaders similarly empowered and at different levels of the political structure within government and the political party system to prioritize women's participation and qualitative representation in power and decision-making, both through the ballot and via appointive positions.
Beyond the 16-day period of activism against gender-based violence, other stakeholders emphasize the need for continuous effort to combat the menace.
We shouldn't just end it at the point of talking, but after today, after the 16 days action, then we must also show it through our action wherever we find ourselves so that we can end this menace.
Stakeholders at the gathering reviewed that tackling the menace of sexual and gender-based violence requires a shift in both policies and societal norms. They say that ensuring that women have access to public institutions is crucial to addressing inequality and empowering them to combat these challenges. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Well, earlier on the news, we told you that Nigeria's economy experienced an increase of 3.4% in its GDP, according to the NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, for Q3 2024. And now to put this in proper perspective, we're joined by Olufemi Babem, partner, Tax KPMG West Africa. Thank you so much, Olufemi, for joining us on the news. Can you please unmute your device so that we can hear you?
Yes, it's on mute now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much for joining us. So tell us, which sectors would you say contributed to that 3.46% that we saw, of course, an increase to Nigeria's economy if you compare it to Q2 of 2024?
Okay, so the growth we have witnessed in Q3 2024 compared to Q2 2024 has largely been driven by the strong growth in the agri sector, primarily from crop production. And I think the major reason for this is the harvest season, right? So, you know, locally we have the planting season, we have the harvest season. And so we are beginning to go into the harvest season, and that's why we see a lot of the significant growth really driving the GDP coming from the crop production sector. That's where you compare the Q3 2024 numbers to the Q2 2024 numbers. And so that really is where the major growth has come from on the quarter-on-quarter basis. And closely related to that would be the road transport, which falls under the service sector. And that's, I mean, as you would expect, many of the farmers and producers will transport, after harvesting, will transport their produce to the markets. And so those are the two major drivers of growth in Q3 2024 when compared to Q2. So but in other sectors, we've seen a rebound from the dip we had in Q2. So you have the construction and real estate, which has seen significant growth also coming from the dip that we witnessed in Q2. And that really is coming from many of the Nigerians in diaspora. When you speak to some of the real estate developers, you see an uptake in development, mostly from Nigerians in diaspora that are coming back home to acquire their properties, either after they're done with the summer break, or they're intending to come home for the Christmas holidays. And so those are the major drivers in terms of construction, in terms of the growth in Q3 GDP numbers. So
if we did see growth in the agricultural sector also contributing more to the country's GDP, why didn't we see a drop in the price of foodstuff in the market? One would have thought that the higher yield would actually, reduce the costs of having to purchase foodstuff in the market, knowing fully well that food inflation is actually what actually drives high inflation in the country.
So typically in economics, there's usually a lag between cause and effect, right? So you would expect that once harvest seasons begins and many more produce begin to hit the market, you expect over time, it's most likely won't happen immediately, but you expect that over time, prices of commodities will drop or reduce a bit, maybe not significantly. I know I was speaking to some friends over the weekend, and they mentioned the fact that at least I think it was either rice or gari. They have talked about the fact that the prices of one of these commodities has begun to drop. Now it's interesting to note that if you look at the trend in 2023 compared to 2024 and even 2022, for the agri sector crop production, the trend has always been cyclical, which means we would have the high when harvest season starts, and then when planting season then comes back in, the contributions to GDP drops slightly. And so it's a year in year out practice, which towards the end of the year, you see a lot more production. Some prices may drop, but then that would then be tapered again by the fact that we're going into the Christmas holidays. And so marketers will try, or retailers will try to make a lot more profits from their sale during the period.
Okay, so what about the
production?
What about the oil sector? I'd like to just get your view about the oil sector, because we looked at 5.57% GDP growth. How significant was that?
So the 5.57% contribution is reasonable if you consider where we're coming from, as being a very oil dependent economy. The 5.57 is reasonable. Like I said, for the non-oil sector, contributed about almost 95%, to make up the balance. What that shows clearly is that there's been a significant shift from oil and gas to other sectors like agri, other sectors like trade, and construction, telecoms, which has taken it up a very significant bit. So the economy is quite diversified. Okay. But if you think about the fact that the government has a target, to grow crude oil production to about 2 million barrels next year and about 4 million barrels by 2030, then you would slightly see the contributions of that sector increase. Okay. Maybe not to the ratio we had previously. Okay. But we expect that to grow slightly. Yes.
All right. Mr. Olufemi Babem, thank you so much for sharing this, of course, information with us.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's talk a bit of education now. The federal government has directed tertiary institutions across Nigeria to set up sexual assault referral centers to tackle cases of harassment, gender-based violence, and students offering lecturers sexual favors in exchange for grades. The Minister of Women Affairs, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, made the announcements during a national summit in Abuja, organized by the Alliances for Africa and the Committee on Gender Directors to launch the 16 Days of Activism campaign against gender-based violence. The directive follows a recent case involving a female student, Ramota Olaholoye, from the Federal University of Oye-Ekiti, who alleged that a lecturer, Dr. Anthony Abibedia, failed her in 2 courses after she rejected his sexual advances. Suleiman Ibrahim emphasized the importance of timely interventions and survivor support through the proposed centers, which aim to create safer learning environments. She reaffirmed the government's commitment on the President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda to champion gender equality, combat gender-based violence, and ensure secure campuses nationwide. Coming up on the news. Masked men disrupt anti-government protest in Malawi. We'll bring you more on this and other stories in a short while. Do stay with us. We now tell you that dozens of masked men armed with machetes and clubs clashed with protesters in Malawi's capital, Lilongwe, on Monday, preventing a planned anti-government demonstration. The protest, organized by a civil society group, aimed to demand the resignation of the energy minister over ongoing fuel shortages and to voice opposition to plans for electronic voting in next year's general elections. Witnesses say the protesters who had gathered at a sports field in the city center were charged by the masked men as they prepared to assemble. Fleeing from the attack, the protesters were unable to regroup, while the group of armed men set up camp on the field to prevent any further demonstrations. The identity of the attackers remain unknown. The protest comes amid growing frustration over the country's fuel crisis and escalating food prices, which have fueled discontent across Malawi. Rescue operations are set to begin in Stilfontein at an abandoned mine where hundreds of illegal miners are still trapped underground. Over the past several weeks, the miners have been locked in a standoff with the police, who surrounded the entrance to the mine shaft and blocked off their food supplies in an attempt to cajole them to probably surrender. According to the Northwest Community Safety and Transport Management, MEC, Whistles Mowing, the trapped miners sent another letter saying they are starving. On Monday, the Pretoria High Court dismissed an application by the Society for the Protection of Our Constitution, which sought to compel the government to provide emergency disaster relief to the miners. Outside of Africa, we tell you that the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump says will hit China, Mexico, and Canada with new tariffs one day into his presidency in an effort to force them to crack down on illegal immigration and drug smuggling into the U.S. The president-elect said that immediately after his inauguration on January 20, he will sign an executive order imposing a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Mexico and Canada. He also said an additional 10% tariff will be levied on China until the government there blocks smuggling of the synthetic opioid fentanyl from the country. If Trump follows through with the threats, it will mark a major escalation in tensions with America's three biggest trading partners. But I'll tell you that hundreds of Mexicans have taken to the streets of Mexico City to demand an end to violence against women in a country with a long history of macho culture. The United Nations estimates that about 10 women are killed every day in Mexico, which is led by its first female president, Claudia Sheinbaum. According to UN figures released on Monday, at least 85,000 adults and young women will be intentionally killed worldwide in 2023, an alarming level of deaths that could have been avoided.
El 25 de noviembre es una fecha muy importante para nosotras, para seguir hablando, sensibilizando sobre la importancia de erradicar la violencia de género, incluyendo las maternidades forzadas. Cuando el aborto está criminalizado, las mujeres están obligadas a asumir maternidades no planeadas, no deseadas, pero también a poner en riesgo nuestra salud y nuestras vidas.
El día de hoy, 25 de noviembre, traigo una manta con el rostro de mi madre, quien, como menciono, fue víctima de feminicidio en Ixtapaluca por quien en ese momento era mi pareja sentimental. Seguimos haciendo un llamado a las autoridades, a la gobernadora Delfina, a la presidenta Sheinbaum y al gobierno de Ixtapaluca, que no se permitan influencias políticas ni intereses económicos en un caso como este de feminicidio, al igual que en el de mis otras compañeras que hoy me acompañan.
Appealed for restraint from Pakistani authorities and thousands of protesters marching on the capital, Islamabad, to call for the release of jailed ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan. Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, urged the demonstrators to maintain peace and abstain from violence, while also urging Pakistani authorities to uphold fundamental freedoms and human rights, as well as Pakistan's laws and constitution, while enforcing law and order.
Freedom of expression peacefully and refrain from violence, and at the same time we call on Pakistani authorities to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms and to ensure respect for Pakistan's laws and constitution as they work to maintain law and order.
We go on a very short break on the news. We'll be back with other stories.